The year is 2026, and the air is thick with a frequency you cannot hear, but your nervous system feels. It is the hum of a trillion data points, a global nervous system designed to bypass your logic and plug directly into your dopamine receptors. You think you are choosing your thoughts. You think that quick glance at your device was a conscious decision. It wasn't. It was a calculated heist. Your attention was stolen by an algorithm that knows your insecurities better than your mother does, and it sold that attention to the highest bidder before you even finished blinking. We are living through the greatest psychological war in human history. It is a war without a front line, fought in the silence of your bedroom and the neon glow of your workspace. The enemy isn't a dictator or a military force, it is a line of code designed to keep you in a state of perpetual agitation. In 2026, being connected is the new form of indentured servitude. The more you react, the more you are owned. The more you scroll, the more your sovereignty dissolves into the digital ether. Look around. The modern world is a curated hallucination. People move through the streets like ghosts, their necks bent, eyes glazed, tethered to a simulation that provides everything except meaning. They are busy, yet they produce nothing of value. They are connected, yet they have never been more alone. They are informed, yet they lack the wisdom to change their own lives. This is the era of the high-functioning addict, the person who can manage a calendar, attend Zoom meetings, and reply to emails, all while their soul is being slowly drained by 1,000 micro-distractions. You are not immune. Your brain has been rewired. The neural pathways that once allowed for deep, contemplative thought have been paved over by the high-speed transit of triviality. You have become a processor of noise. But deep down, in the part of you that hasn't been colonized by the algorithm, there is a growing resentment. A realization that you were meant for more than just being a data point in a feedback loop. You are beginning to realize that in a world where everyone is screaming for attention, the most powerful person in the room is the one who is nowhere to be found. The identity you carry is a fabrication. You believe you are a productive member of society because you are busy. But busyness is the ultimate distraction from the work that actually matters. In the Stoic tradition, there is a concept called prohairesis, the faculty of choice. It is the only thing we truly own. In 2026, prohairesis has been outsourced to artificial intelligence. Your choices are being suggested to you, refined for you, and ultimately made for you. To reclaim your identity, you must first commit a form of digital suicide. You must kill the version of yourself that seeks validation through a screen. Imagine a man standing in the middle of a hurricane. Debris is flying, the wind is howling, and the ground is shaking. Most people are trying to catch the debris, thinking it has value. They are chasing the leaves, the trash, the noise. But the Stoic is the eye of the storm. He is the only thing that isn't moving. He doesn't fight the wind, he simply refuses to be moved by it. This is the essence of the Deep Work Stoic. While the rest of the world is drowning in a sea of breaking news and urgent notifications, the Stoic has retreated into the fortress of his own mind. He is not staying informed. He is staying intentional. He understands that most information is just sophisticated noise designed to trigger an emotional response. If it doesn't improve his character or his craft, it is a poison. He has replaced the fear of missing out with the joy of being forgotten. He knows that true power doesn't come from being seen, it comes from being effective. And you cannot be effective if your mind is a sieve. The architecture of your environment is the architecture of your failure. Every smart device in your home is a Trojan horse. They were sold to you as tools of convenience, but they are actually tools of extraction. They extract your time, your focus, and your agency. The Deep Work Stoic looks at his environment through the lens of psychological warfare. He treats his workspace like a monastery and his mind like a vault. He doesn't try to focus. He creates a world where distraction is physically impossible. Consider the story of the ghost operative. In 2026, there is a new class of elite worker. They don't have large social media followings. They don't post day in the life vlogs. They don't attend networking events. In fact, if you looked for them online, you might think they don't exist. But these are the individuals who are actually running the world. They are the engineers building the next generation of energy systems, the writers crafting the philosophies that will guide the next century, the strategists navigating the collapse of old institutions. While the masses are busy arguing about the outrage of the day, the ghost operative is in a state of deep work. He wakes up before the sun, not because of a morning routine he saw on TikTok, but because the silence of the dawn is the only time the world isn't trying to sell him something. He sits at a desk with no second monitor, no phone within reach, and no internet connection unless absolutely necessary. He works for 4 hours on a single task. No breaks, no music, no shifting of focus. To the average person, this sounds like torture. To the Deep Work Stoic, this is the only time he is truly alive. In those 4 hours, he achieves more than most people do in a month of busy work. He enters a state of flow that is neurochemically superior to any drug. He is not just working, he is performing an act of resistance. He is reclaiming his humanity from the machine. This is the hidden knowledge. Isolation is not a punishment, it is a strategic advantage. In a hyper-connected world, the ability to be alone with your thoughts is a superpower. Seneca wrote that, "The mind is never more powerful than when it is focused on one thing at a time." In 2026, focus is the new IQ. It is the new wealth. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you cannot control your attention, your talent will be harvested by someone who can. The world wants you to be a generalist, a person who knows a little bit about everything and masters nothing. The world wants you to be available. But availability is a debt you pay to other people's priorities. The Deep Work Stoic is unavailable. He is unreachable. He has built a wall around his time that no one can breach without his permission. He understands that no is a complete sentence and the most important word in the Stoic vocabulary. The illusion of productivity is the most dangerous trap of all. We have confused activity with progress. We have confused the feeling of being overwhelmed with the reality of being effective. You spend your day clearing your inbox, attending meetings, and updating your status. At the end of the day, you are exhausted. You feel like you've worked hard. But if you look back, what did you actually create? What did you build that will last? The answer, for most, is nothing. You were simply a cog in someone else's machine. You were a relay station for other people's agendas. This is the productivity paradox. The more tools we have to be productive, the less real work we actually do. We have become experts at the mechanics of work while losing the spirit of craftsmanship. The Stoic approach to deep work is rooted in the concept of ascesis, disciplined training. It is the understanding that the mind, like a muscle, must be trained to endure the weight of focus. Most people's minds are flabby. They cannot sit for 10 minutes without checking for a notification. They have lost the ability to be bored. And because they cannot tolerate boredom, they can never reach the depths of creativity. Boredom is the gateway to the sublime. It is the moment when the superficial layers of the mind fall away and you are forced to confront the void. Most people run from that void. They fill it with podcasts, videos, and endless scrolling. But the Deep Work Stoic welcomes it. He knows that on the other side of that boredom is a clarity that most will never know. He trains himself to sit in the silence until the noise stops screaming and the truth begins to speak. This is why the rare few are withdrawing. They are not quitting society, they are opting out of the circus. They are moving to the periphery, where they can see the game for what it is. They are choosing to be out of the loop, because they realize the loop is a noose. They are building lives centered around the few things that actually matter: deep relationships, physical mastery, and the pursuit of excellence in their chosen craft. The tension is escalating. The gap between the focused and the distracted is no longer a crack, it is a canyon. On one side, you have the users, the billions of people who are being consumed by the digital economy. On the other side, you have the architects, the Deep Work Stoics who are using the silence to build the future. The question is not whether you are distracted. The question is whether you have the courage to acknowledge that your distraction is a choice. You are choosing to be a victim of the algorithm. You are choosing to let your potential wither in the heat of 1,000 trivialities. But today, that choice ends. Today, you begin the process of withdrawal. Not because you are weak, but because you are finally strong enough to be alone. In a world addicted to noise, focus becomes a form of rebellion. This is the beginning of the path. To continue this journey of reclaiming your mind is to align yourself with a higher order of existence. If you recognize the truth in these words, you are already part of the silent few. Like this transmission to signal your intent. Subscribe to the frequency of the disciplined. Share this with the one person you know who is still fighting to wake up. Deep work is no longer a professional skill. In 2026, it has been elevated to a weapon of psychological and economic warfare. As the world becomes increasingly automated, as artificial intelligence consumes the middle ground of human effort, the value of standard labor has plummeted toward zero. Talent is now a commodity, easily replicated by a machine. Intelligence is a utility, available for a monthly subscription. The only remaining scarcity, the only asset that cannot be synthesized, scaled, or simulated, is the ability to maintain unbroken, high-level cognitive focus on a single, complex problem for an extended duration. This is the lethality of the Deep Work Stoic. He does not compete in the marketplace of noise. He does not fight for scraps of attention. He operates in the shadows of the attention delta, the widening chasm between those who can direct their minds and those whose minds are directed by others. To the uninitiated, deep work looks like productivity. To the operator, it is a siege engine. It is the process of concentrating all internal resources into a singular point of pressure until the resistance of reality finally breaks. While the average individual spends their day reacting, responding to pings, vibrating to notifications, surfing the waves of trending outrage, the Deep Work Stoic is engaged in a strategic withdrawal. This is not a retreat of cowardice, but a retreat of power. Like a submarine diving below the thermal layer to avoid sonar, the Stoic descends into a depth of thought where the surface noise cannot reach. At these depths, the pressure is immense, but the clarity is absolute. In this state, the mind undergoes a neurochemical transformation. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of human agency, becomes the dominant commander. The limbic system, the ancient part of the brain that craves the cheap dopamine of likes and shares, is systematically starved into submission. This is the Stoic practice of ekpyrosis, a metaphorical conflagration of the soul where everything non-essential is burned away. What remains is a mind that is cold, surgical, and terrifyingly effective. The high performer of 2026 does not have a work-life balance. He has a sovereignty-noise ratio. He understands that every time he allows an external stimulus to penetrate his focus, he is ceding a piece of his territory to a foreign power. To structure isolation is to build a fortress. This is not about being antisocial, it is about being pro-conscious. The architecture of this isolation is multi-layered. It begins with the physical environment, the digital Faraday cage. The modern operator knows that if a smartphone is in the same room, his cognitive capacity is already diminished. It doesn't even need to be on. Its mere presence represents an open loop, a subconscious expectation of interruption. The Stoic eliminates the loop. His phone is not just on, do not disturb, it is physically removed, locked away, or rendered inert. But physical isolation is only the first wall. The second wall is the temporal sanctum. High performers in 2026 have moved beyond the 9 to 5 inches paradigm. They work in deep cycles, 4-hour blocks of uninterrupted intensity that follow the circadian rhythm of their own biology, not the rhythm of a corporate clock. During these blocks, they are dead to the world. They do not exist for friends, family, or colleagues. They have established a social contract of strategic unavailability. This unavailability is often mistaken for arrogance. In reality, it is the highest form of respect for one's own potential. The average mind is always open for business. It is a 24-hour convenience store for other people's emergencies. The disciplined mind is a high-security vault. You do not get in without an appointment, and you certainly do not get in for free. By structuring his life this way, the Stoic ensures that when he does emerge from isolation, he brings with him something of genuine value. Not just another email, but a solution, a vision, a masterpiece. The psychology of uninterrupted focus is a study in tension. To the observer, the man in deep work looks peaceful. Internally, he is navigating a battlefield. The first hour is always the hardest. This is the cognitive friction, period. The brain, still buzzing with the residue of the world's noise, frantically looks for an exit. It suggests 1,000 trivial tasks. Check the weather. Look up that old friend. Check your balance. The average person yields to this friction within 90 seconds. They quick check their way into a 3-hour spiral of irrelevance. The Stoic however, utilizes the concept of ataraxia, the state of robust equanimity. He watches these impulses rise like waves against a cliff. He does not fight them, he simply refuses to be moved by them. He knows that if he can endure the first 60 minutes of boredom and mental resistance, the click will occur. The click is the transition into the flow state, but a Stoic flow state is different. It is not a happy accident. It is a manufactured result of discipline. The neurobiology shifts. Acetylcholine sharpens the focus until the peripheral world literally fades from view. Norepinephrine provides the energy to sustain the effort. And finally, dopamine is released not as a reward for seeking, but as a reward for solving. This is the deep work high, a state of euphoria that makes the cheap thrills of social media look like the trash they are. Contrast this with the managed mind of the masses. The average person in 2026 is a victim of context switching. They move from task to task every few minutes, leaving a residue of attention on everything they touch. By midday, their mind is a tangled web of unfinished thoughts and half-baked ideas. They are cognitively bankrupt before the sun even sets. They are not working. They are simply vibrating in place. The Stoic operator looks at this frantic vibration with a mixture of pity and resolve. He knows that his ability to stay on one path, while everyone else is zigzagging in panic, is what will eventually lead him to the finish line while they are still arguing about the starting point. He doesn't need to be 10 times faster than them. He just needs to be the only one who doesn't stop. The great divergence of the 21st century is not between the rich and the poor, but between the focused and the fragmented. In the past, wealth was built on land, then on capital. Today, wealth is built on the depth of output. When you spend 4 hours in uninterrupted concentration, you are performing a form of compound interest on your intellect. You are reaching the deep frontier of your field, the place where the easy answers have already been found and the real breakthroughs reside. The average worker never reaches the frontier. They spend their entire lives in the shallows, reworking the same basic ideas, competing with billions of others for the same mediocre rewards. The disciplined operator is a hunter of the frontier. He knows that 1 hour of deep work is worth 10 hours of shallow work. He sees the world as a series of complex puzzles that can only be solved by a mind that has been sharpened to a point. He treats his focus as his most sacred resource. He does not waste it on arguments with strangers. He does not waste it on keeping up with the latest trends. He invests it, with cold-blooded efficiency, into the projects that will define his legacy. This is the psychological warfare of the modern age, the battle for your internal sovereignty. The system is designed to keep you in a state of peripheral awareness, aware of everything but focused on nothing. It wants you to be a consumer of reality, not a creator of it. The system fears the man who can sit in a room alone and think. It fears the man who has no notification to answer. It fears the man who has decided that his own internal judgment is more important than the external feed. As we move deeper into 2026, the consequences of this divide will become brutal. The fragmented class will find themselves increasingly irrelevant, their attention spans shattered, their economic value evaporated. They will become the managed, a population kept sedated by entertainment and basic needs, provided by those who actually stayed focused. The focused class will be the architects. They will be the ones who design the systems, write the laws, and build the future. They will not be the loudest people in the room. They will be the ones who weren't in the room at all because they were too busy doing the work that matters. They are the ones who understand that in the kingdom of the blind, the man with a 1-hour attention span is king. You are currently standing at the crossroads of this divergence. Every time you choose to focus, you are casting a vote for your future as an architect. Every time you succumb to the distraction, you are accepting your fate as one of the managed. The choice feels small in the moment, but it is the most significant choice of your life. The world is screaming at you to look away. It is desperate for your attention because your attention is the only thing it needs to survive. But you don't need the world's noise. You need the silence of your own discipline. You need the weight of your own thoughts. You need to realize that the most dangerous weapon in existence is a human mind that has decided to stop looking at its phone and start looking at its potential. While they scroll, someone else is building what they will one day depend on. The architecture of your greatness is being laid in the hours you spend in silence. If you are ready to stop being a consumer and start being a creator, you are in the right place. Like this to cement your commitment to the deep. Subscribe to join the Guild of the Focused. The fortress has been built. The notifications are silenced. The door is locked. You are alone in a room with nothing but a task and the ticking of a clock. This is where most people, even those who believe they are disciplined, utterly collapse. They have conquered the external world, but they are completely defenseless against the internal one. The greatest siege you will ever face is not the one conducted by algorithms or corporate interests, it is the one conducted by your own nervous system. It is the revolt of a brain that has been pampered by a decade of instant gratification, now suddenly forced to endure the weight of its own existence. In the first 20 minutes of true deep work, the resistance manifests as a physical sensation. It is a phantom itch in your palm, the muscle memory of a thumb wanting to swipe. It is a sudden, urgent need to check the weather, to reorganize your pens, to look up a trivial fact that feels like a life or death mystery. This is the ego's survival mechanism. The ego thrives in the shallows. In the shallows, it can be busy. It can perform the identity of the hustler or the intellectual. But in the deep, the ego begins to drown. There is no audience in the deep. There is no feedback loop. There is only the work, and the work is a mirror that reflects your inadequacies with brutal, high-definition clarity. Most people cannot sustain deep work because they are terrified of what they will find in the silence. We use distraction as a form of digital dialysis, filtering out the toxins of our own unresolved thoughts. When you remove the distraction, the toxins remain. You are forced to confront the boredom, the anxiety, and the creeping suspicion that perhaps you aren't as capable as you told yourself you were. This is why the modern mind is in a state of perpetual flight. We are running away from the void of our own focus. The Stoics called this agitatio, the restless wandering of a mind that lacks a center. To the Stoic, a man who cannot sit still is a man who is not yet free. He is a slave to his own impulses, a leaf blown by the wind of his own neurochemistry. In 2026, this restlessness has been weaponized. Your inability to tolerate 5 minutes of boredom is a multi-billion-dollar profit center for the attention economy. Every time you break your focus to relieve the tension of silence, you are paying a tax to the machine. You are literally trading your potential for a moment of chemical relief. Training the mind to endure silence is an act of voluntary hardship. Marcus Aurelius famously spoke of the inner citadel, the place within the mind that is invulnerable to external turmoil. But the citadel is not a gift, it is a construction project. It is built brick by brick, minute by minute, through the endurance of mental friction. When you sit in that chair and the urge to distract yourself arises, you are at a point of bifurcation. One path leads back to the sedative of the shallows. The other path leads through the fire of the internal battle. The Deep Work Stoic utilizes the concept of prosoche, extreme mindfulness. He does not try to suppress the urge to check his phone or the desire to quit. Suppression is just another form of engagement. Instead, he observes the urge as if it were a strange insect. He notes the rising heat in his chest, the tightening of his throat, the frantic whisper of the ego saying, "Just for a second." He watches it, he labels it, and he remains still. He understands that an impulse is not a command, it is merely a suggestion from a lower part of his biology. This is the dopamine reset. We have artificially lowered our threshold for boredom. In the 18th century, a man might sit on a porch for 3 hours watching the rain and feel perfectly content. In 2026, a man cannot wait for an elevator for 30 seconds without reaching for a hit of digital nicotine. This is not a lack of willpower. It is a structural atrophy of the prefrontal cortex. To reclaim your focus, you must intentionally resensitize yourself to the boredom threshold. You must learn to find the nuance in the silence. Think of your mind as a centrifuge. When you are constantly distracted, your thoughts are a cloudy, chaotic mixture. Deep work is the process of spinning that centrifuge until the heavy elements, the deep insights, the complex solutions, the original ideas, settle at the bottom, while the light, trivial fluff rises to the top to be discarded. This separation takes time. It takes stillness. If you stop the centrifuge every 10 minutes to check a message, the mixture remains cloudy forever. You will live your entire life in a state of mental fog, wondering why you never achieved the greatness you felt was within you. The internal battle is also a battle against productive procrastination. This is the ego's most sophisticated trick. It realizes it can no longer distract you with entertainment, so it distracts you with lesser work. It tells you that before you can do the deep work, you must first clear your desk. Or you must research one more thing. Or you must optimize your workflow. This is a trap. It is a way of feeling productive without actually incurring the cognitive cost of creation. Real work is painful. It is a form of cognitive heavy lifting that creates a literal, physical strain in the brain. If the work you are doing doesn't feel slightly uncomfortable, you aren't doing deep work, you're just busy. The Stoic embraces this discomfort. He looks for it. He knows that the discomfort is the sign that he has reached the edge of the known. Everything inside the comfort zone has already been done. Everything outside of it is where the value lies. This is where the concept of enkradia, self-mastery, becomes the primary weapon. It is the ability to maintain a chosen course of action despite the presence of internal or external resistance. Most people believe that they need motivation to do deep work. They wait for the mood to strike them. This is the hallmark of the amateur. The Stoic operator knows that motivation is a fickle emotion, a chemical byproduct of the shallows. He doesn't rely on how he feels. He relies on what he is. He is a person who sits in the chair. He is a person who stays in the room. He is a person who finishes. The silence is not an empty space, it is a pressurized chamber. In that pressure, the sublime boredom begins to take hold. This is the point where the brain, realizing that no rescue is coming, no notification, no video, no easy exit, is forced to generate its own stimulation. It begins to pull disparate ideas together. It begins to see patterns that were invisible in the noise. This is the birth of original thought. In a world of curated opinions and AI-generated summaries, a single original thought is worth more than $1 billion data center. But to reach this state, you must first pass through the dead zone. This is the period, usually between the 40-minute and 90-minute mark, where the initial excitement of starting has worn off and the finish line is not yet in sight. This is where the ego death of deep work occurs. You feel tired. You feel uninspired. You feel like the project is a failure. The average person quits here. They tell themselves they'll come back to it with fresh eyes. They won't. They just signaled to their brain that whenever things get difficult, they will provide an escape. The Deep Work Stoic does not escape. He leans into the dead zone. He utilizes amor fati, the love of fate. He loves the struggle. He loves the fact that it is hard, because if it were easy, it would have no value. He knows that the dead zone is the filter that removes his competition. While the rest of the world is taking a mental health break, the moment they feel a hint of resistance, the Stoic is doubling down. He is training his attention stamina. By the time he reaches the 2-hour mark, something miraculous happens. The resistance vanishes. The ego is silenced. The sense of time disappears. He has entered the flow of the ancients. This is not the frantic, high-speed flow of a gamer or social media user. It is a slow, deep, powerful current. He is no longer trying to work. The work is flowing through him. He has achieved a state of ataraxia within the labor itself. This is the hidden psychological warfare. The ability to sit in silence is not just a productivity hack, it is a demonstration of power. It is a statement to the universe that you are in control of your own consciousness. You are not a pawn of the dopamine economy. You are not a slave to your biological urges. You are a sovereign entity. And in 2026, sovereignty is the ultimate luxury. The world is terrified of your silence. It wants you to scream. It wants you to react. It wants you to participate in the collective hysteria. Because as long as you are reacting, you are predictable. As long as you are predictable, you are manageable. But the man who can sit in a room for 4 hours, staring at a problem without flinching, is dangerous. He cannot be bought with cheap thrills. He cannot be distracted by manufactured outrages. He is a ghost in the system, a shadow moving through the noise, building a reality that the rest of the world won't see until it's already finished. The tension of the silence is the tension of a bowstring being drawn back. The longer you can hold it, the further the arrow will fly. Most people release the string too early because their arms are weak and they are afraid of the strain. They spend their lives shooting arrows that land at their feet. But you will hold the tension. You will embrace the silence. You will sit in the room until the world outside begins to feel like the illusion, and the work in front of you becomes the only truth. The ability to sit in silence is the beginning of power. The internal siege is won not through force, but through endurance. If you have felt the friction and chosen to stay, you are reclaiming your throne. The final transformation of the Deep Work Stoic is not an acquisition of new skills, but a total dissolution of the need to be perceived. In the hyper-vocal landscape of 2026, where every micro-achievement is broadcast, geotagged, and monetized, the act of staying silent is the ultimate psychological flex. Most people are performing their lives for an invisible audience, trapped in a feedback loop of external validation that dictates their moods, their goals, and their very sense of self-worth. The Deep Work Stoic has cut the wire. He has realized that the public eye is a blind god. It demands sacrifice but offers no true salvation. To live without external validation is to possess a form of cognitive stealth. In military terms, stealth isn't about being invisible, it's about being undetectable by the enemy's radar. In the modern world, the enemy is the collective social pressure to conform, to participate, and to explain oneself. The Stoic operator does none of these things. He understands the Epicurean injunction laid bioses, live in obscurity. He knows that the moment you share a goal, you receive a social dopamine hit that tricks your brain into thinking the work is already done. By remaining silent, he keeps the internal pressure high. He uses that pressure to fuel the work, rather than venting it through the exhaust pipe of social media. This is the identity of the ghost architect. He is the person who spends 3 years building a software empire, a literary masterpiece, or a revolutionary investment fund without ever posting a single update. He understands that the work speaks for itself, and if the work is good enough, it doesn't need an advocate. If it isn't good enough, no amount of marketing can save it. He has moved beyond the hustle culture of 2020, which was loud and fragile. He has embraced the execution culture of 2026, which is silent and unbreakable. His identity is anchored in autarkia, self-sufficiency. He doesn't need you to believe he is successful to be successful. He doesn't need your to know his logic is sound. He is his own judge, his own jury, and his own witness. This internal focus creates a level of psychological stability that looks like a superpower to the fragmented masses. While they are spiraling because of a cancelled trend or a dip in their engagement metrics, the Stoic is unmoved. He is focused on the one thing that cannot be taken from him, the quality of his character and the depth of his output. Quiet domination is the inevitable byproduct of this isolation. In your career, this looks like asymmetric results. Because you are the only one capable of 4-hour deep work sessions, you solve problems that have stumped entire teams of shallow workers. You produce in a month what others produce in a year. But you don't announce your arrival. You simply deliver the results and disappear back into the silence. This creates an aura of competence-based mystique. People don't know how you do it, they only know that you are the only one who can. In terms of money, the Deep Work Stoic views wealth not as a means of display, but as a means of temporal sovereignty. He doesn't buy things to impress people he doesn't like. He buys back his time so he can go deeper into the work he loves. He understands that the rat race is only for rats. He has opted out of the consumption-production trap. While the world is chasing the next hype cycle, or meme coin, the Stoic is investing in antifragile assets, his health, his skills, and his private enterprises. He is building a dark portfolio that the world cannot see and therefore cannot target. In his personal life, this quiet domination manifests as a presence of absence. Because he is not constantly available, his presence carries a heavy weight. When he speaks, it is because he has something to say, not because he feels the need to fill the air with noise. His relationships are deep, few, and intensely loyal. He has no followers, only allies. He has no fans, only peers. He has replaced the thin, digital connections of the masses with the thick, analog bonds of the true elite. This is the Stoic advantage in the age of AI. As machines take over the tasks of logic and data processing, the human elements of intuition, deep synthesis, and high-level strategy become priceless. These elements cannot be cultivated in a state of distraction. They require the long thought, the kind of thinking that only happens in the third or fourth hour of uninterrupted focus. By the time the rest of the world realizes that deep focus is the only thing the machines can't replicate, the Stoic will already own the landscape. He is not competing with the AI, he is the one directing it from the silence of his fortress. The future belongs to the focused, but not in the way people think. It won't be a future of super celebrities or visionary leaders who are always on camera. It will be a future of invisible sovereigns. We are entering a neo-feudal era where the lords are those who own the infrastructure of thought, and the serfs are those who spend their lives consuming the content generated on that infrastructure. The Deep Work Stoic is the new aristocracy, not by birth, but by discipline. He is the person who can still read a 500-page book in one sitting. He is the person who can write code without an internet connection. He is the person who can meditate for an hour without a guided app. These primitive skills are becoming the highest forms of technology. While the masses are having their neural pathways harvested for advertising revenue, the Stoic is terraforming his own mind. He is building a world within a world. The tension of 2026 is the tension between the feed and the focus. The feed is a global machine that wants to flatten everyone into a single, predictable, reactive mass. The focus is the individual resistance that insists on complexity, nuance, and depth. To choose focus is to commit an act of heresy against the modern religion of connectivity. It is to say, I am not part of your network. I am my own node. I am my own source. This path is lonely, yes, but it is a fortified loneliness. It is the loneliness of the mountaintop, not the loneliness of the gutter. From the mountaintop, you can see the storm coming long before it hits the valley. You can see the patterns of history repeating themselves. You can see the attention bubble preparing to burst. And because you have built your life on the bedrock of deep work rather than the shifting sands of public opinion, you are ready. You are not just surviving the future, you are the one who is writing its code. We must redefine success. For the last century, success has been defined by volume, how much you have, how many people know you, how much noise you make. In the Deep Work Stoic paradigm, success is defined by density. How much meaning can you pack into a single hour? How much truth can you extract from a single silence? How much of your life is actually yours, and how much belongs to the algorithms? Success is the ability to walk through a crowded city and feel absolutely no need to be noticed. Success is the ability to work on a project for 5 years in total secrecy and feel more fulfilled than someone who gets 1 million likes on a selfie. Success is the quiet domination of your own impulses. If you can control your attention, you can control your destiny. Everything else, the money, the fame, the power, is just the dust that kicks up behind the chariot of focus. As this transmission ends, the world is waiting for you to plug back in. It has 1,000 notifications prepared for you. It has 12 emergencies that need your immediate reaction. It has a new set of outrages to keep your heart rate high and your focus low. The machine is hungry. It needs your engagement to stay alive. It is begging you to come back to the shallows, to the safety of the herd, to the comfort of the noise. But you know better now. You have seen the architecture of the heist. You have felt the power that comes from the silence. You have tasted the depth of the work, and the shallows will never satisfy you again. You are no longer a consumer of the modern world, you are its silent architect. You will go back to your room, you will lock your door, and you will descend once more into the deep. You will build what they will one day depend on, and you will do it without a sound. The world will try to find you. It will try to label you, to categorize you, and to distract you. But you are a ghost. You are a shadow. You are the eye of the storm. Let them have the noise. Let them have the likes. Let them have the ephemeral glory of the screen. You have something better. You have the truth that can only be found in the absence of everything else. True success is not found in the roar of the crowd, but in the precision of the silence. It is not the expansion of your reach, but the contraction of your focus until it becomes a laser that can cut through the fabric of reality itself. You are the Deep Work Stoic. You are the master of the only currency that matters. And in the final accounting, the world will belong to those who were brave enough to be forgotten. In the end, the noise of the world is just a distraction from the masterpiece of your own silence. The journey into the deep never truly ends. It only becomes more refined. If you have followed this transmission to its conclusion, you have already transitioned beyond the masses. You are now an operator in the silent rise. Subscribe to remain tethered to the frequency of the focused. Share this only with those who are capable of the depth required to understand it. The ability to sit in silence is the beginning of power. Success is the sound of a mind that no longer needs to be heard.